The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. On the heels of WrestleMania weekend, thought I'd bring out a nostalgia nugget, the Rated R Superstar t-shirt by the Wrestler Edge from the Attitude Era. And yes, I know a lot of people don't want to talk about wrestling, but there's a lot of wrestling fans out there. Yes, we know it's fake. Yes, I guess the Captain Obvious thing is, they always, you know that's fake, right? Well, no shit. I guess the next thing you're going to tell me is not to put a tooth under my pillow. You're going to tell me that Rocky didn't win those heavyweight boxing titles, right? Because we all know in real life, Apollo Creed would have beat his ass twice. But I want to get to my random thought of the day, and the random thought of the day is about Dawn Staley, who is a racist race baiter. Once again, rears her ugly head. And she already outed herself earlier this year when she canceled the game with BYU because there was supposedly some racial slurs hurled at a Duke player. And we come to find out the girl lied about it. And after they found out she lied about it, what did Dawn Staley do? Dawn Staley did nothing. She didn't apologize. She didn't walk it back. She didn't do anything. And that's why I don't respect her, because she's one of those people that can't admit when she's wrong. And this past weekend when they got beat, she's like she always does, she's a sore loser, she had some interesting things to say. They asked her about the comment that the Iowa coach made. And all the Iowa coach said was that playing South Carolina was like being in a bar fight. That's a compliment, Dawn. If you know how the analogy was used and how she used it in the context of a sentence, that was a compliment by saying that y'all are real tough to play. Well, Dawn goes on to say that we're not thugs, we're not monkeys, don't judge us by the color of our skin. Dawn, you show me where that was said by anybody. Only one person said that, Dawn. You. You called your own players monkeys. That makes you a racist. A reverse racist is even worse. So, people like that, they want to separate us. Race relations had come a long way when I was growing up. In the 80s and the 90s, man, you had great stuff going on. You had the We Are the World video with numerous genres and races coming together to make a video together. Kenny Rogers, Smokey Robinson, two completely genres. Then you had Aerosmith and Run DMC collaborate in making Run DMC's hit song Walk This Way, which was also a hit song for Aerosmith. All that was shot to hell in the 2000s by the liberal spastics and people like Dawn Staley, because them keeping us separated. They don't want average white people and black people coming together, people. They want us separated. They want us separated because why? Because it benefits their agenda, especially the liberal spastics, especially financially. Now, the topic of the day is going to be the SEC and the Big Ten. Could they be coming together to form an unholy alliance in the future to trim some of the fat and take some of the pieces of the pie away from the middle-of-the-road teams? Let's talk about it. Riding on in once again on the Outlaw Posse. That's right, the Outlaw Posse is now in effect. That is the Outlaw College Football, acronymically speaking, the OCF. Also on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it here, people. Today's topic is the Big Ten and the SEC. Could they about to be forming an unholy alliance in the future? Maybe not right now, but 4 or 5 years down the road, I can see it. I can see it, especially if they get on to this. If they get this idea in their head, it could happen. But before we get to all that, I'd like to ask you to do 4 important things for me. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. That's right. Sharing is caring, and subscribing pushes that needle for me on that algorithm. Now, let's get to it here. The SEC and the Big Ten. I think if they're smart, and they're usually pretty smart about things, if they get this inkling of the idea that I'm thinking about, they could come together and form an unholy alliance and basically shut down all of those teams that they consider mooches and leeches. I don't consider them that, so don't kill me. But this is what I'm thinking they're thinking. You see, the SEC threw the first shot. They went out and got Oklahoma and Texas, which almost effectively shut down the Big 12 until Brett Yormark come in and sort of saved the day. The Pac-12 had a chance right then to assert themselves, and they didn't. They let elitist bullshit and elitist biases towards religion and other stupid crap get in the way of doing what they should have done, and that was pick the bones of the Big 12. And then a little loosely knit alliance with the Big 10, and they were lured in by Kevin Warren. So was the ACC. So the SEC took their two biggest teams, but Brett Yormark went out and got 4 teams and righted the ship. 4 good G5 schools with a lot of value and saved the day for them. Well, you fast forward now and you got the Pac-12 out there who's having the same problem as the Big 12 did a few years back. They had their 2 biggest teams taken by the Big 10 and Kevin Warren, who, to me, I think they just lured him into that little loosely knit alliance with the ACC to temporarily put things off until they could get their ducks in a row and decide what they want to do and how they wanted to handle this thing going forward as far as expansion goes, and to answer the SEC, which they did by taking the 2 biggest markets out of the Pac-12. And the Pac-12 is just astounded by this. They can't believe it. But they don't really blame the Big 10. They're always trying to blame the Big 12 for whatever reason. Well, now the Big 12 can do the same thing to them. They could pick their teams, but a lot of them teams are saying they want to stay together. I think it's a mistake. But now the Big 10 and the SEC really hold the cards if they really think about it. What they could do now is once they get their ducks in a row again and let things settle, which is what I think they're doing. People think they're done, but I don't think they're done. I don't think the SEC's done. I don't think the Big Ten's done. But I don't think they're going to target the ACC like people think. I think that grant of rights, while it may have some loopholes in it, the loopholes aren't big enough to do what the Big Ten and the SEC want as far as getting teams to leave the ACC. So the ACC for now might be safe. But the Big 12, who thought they had righted the ship with Brett Yormark's additions, they may not be out of the woods yet. The SEC sort of wants to get another market in Florida. I know that's much to the chagrin of the Florida Gator Nation out there. They've long wanted to just be the only team in Florida, just like South Carolina wants to be the only team in South Carolina, and Texas A&M, the same thing. But South Carolina and Florida both need to take notes from Texas A&M and Texas and Oklahoma, because once you get to a certain point, those wants and desires are no longer what the wants and desires are of the majority of the conference. And the majority of the conference wants another Florida market. And since they can't get Florida State and Miami, Central Florida is the next biggest thing. Central Florida has one of the biggest enrollments in America, if not the biggest, and they are in a great market in Central Florida, in the city of Orlando. And it's a little further south than Gainesville. So they'd be a little further south down into the very profitable state of Florida. And the SEC done that, and the Big 12 will be scrambling again. And also the SEC, a lot of people don't think about them moving further north because they're called the SEC and they're called the Southeastern Conference. But Missouri's not really Southeast. So it's a possibility that they could go after Cincinnati as well. Maybe even West Virginia. West Virginia's market ain't quite as big as what they want, but I don't think markets are as important as they used to be because they got so many big markets now. At this point, they may just be going for fan support and overall winning percentage, which West Virginia has that in their favor. They're the 15th best winning team in NCAA history, which could be attractive. But I think what the SEC would do if they went further north is not go after West Virginia, but go after the newest edition, that being Cincinnati, and that way the SEC could get in the state of Ohio. Now, another one would be Notre Dame. Notre Dame may be a little far-reaching because a lot of Notre Dame people, they're elitist about it and blah, blah, blah. And our academics are too high for the SEC. We all know that's horse shit. I've explained that numerous times. Why, to me, that's a bunch of crap, because a lot of these players get assistance and make the grade point average regardless of what the grade point average is. If the grade point average requirements are 3.2 at Alabama, they'll get it. If it's a 3.8 at Notre Dame, they'll find a way for them to get it, regardless if they're smart enough to get it, in my opinion. But now, the Big Ten could partner up with the SEC and say, look, you do what you're going to do, like with the Big 12 scenario that I just set up. You do that with the Big 12, we'll take care of business out there in the Pac-12. They let things settle. They go out there. They get Oregon and Washington. And then possibly, maybe, get either a BYU or Utah. Utah has the Salt Lake City market. And also maybe get one or two of those Arizona schools. They may just go after one. If they go back out there, they may just want to add 4 more. They may add 6 more. Everybody keeps talking about the Big 12 taking 6 or taking 4 of the Big 12. But the Big 10 could trump the Big 12 by going out there and getting those teams themselves. And if they did that, the Big 10 would be nationwide for real. And the SEC would own most of the southern markets. And when that grant of rights deal does finally get up, I guess it was 2036. I think they'll find some way out of that crap before 2036. But when that grant of rights thing does stop protecting the ACC, then we'll see a complete transformation, I think, in 10 to 15 years of it being just the Big 10 and the SEC. You'll have something similar to the NFL with the NFC and the AFC. And you'd have a lot of teams trimmed out. Teams like West Virginia, for example, who I just mentioned, who's the 15th best winning percentage in NCAA history, they would be on the line there. There'd be some scary moments for West Virginia people. Shout out to my boy Kuz out there. He'd be sweating it. They may get in, they may not. Middle of the road teams like, for example, Oregon State. Yes, these teams percolate up and they have great years every once in a while. Oregon State had a great year last year. I think they won 9 or 10 games, went to the Las Vegas Bowl and beat the crap out of Florida. But that's not the norm. Do your college football history, Oregon State, for the most part, has been an abysmal program that wins maybe 4 and 5 games a year, if they're lucky. Washington State, same thing. Very abysmal program throughout history. Every once in a while, they'll pop up and have a good year. But for the most part, the upper echelon of teams, the Alabamas, Ohio States, Notre Dame's, USC's of the world, Oklahoma's, Texas's of the world, they see them as leeches and mooches. I don't see it that way. I think it's a horrible thing to think, but I think they see it that way. And I think one day, it's probably going to be trimmed down to at least 72 teams, and then probably even trim down further, in my opinion. Maybe trim it down. I think they might even trim it down maybe to 50 to 56 teams. At that point, like I said, there'd be teams that's on the line, some that's not on the line that would get in that you would think would get in, and some that get in that you wouldn't think that would get in. I just think it's going to come a day when you're just going to have 2 mega conferences, much to my chagrin, and a lot of other people out there. It's going to be more like the NFL going forward. And that's all I got to say about that. If you don't mind, like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Also, there's a heart down here. If you don't mind, hit that. Throw me a few dollars in the coffers. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.